Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, the early arrivers, not too early, a couple minutes early. We certainly appreciate you joining us. For us on the East Coast, it's evening. For you on the West Coast, it's late afternoon. Thank you so much. We all appreciate it. And if you're like me on the East Coast, you ate your dinner really fast before all this. And it's awesome. We are very excited. We have, oh my goodness, we already have 21 people already on joining us. That's fantastic. So we definitely look forward to sharing our stories and making sure we're focusing on that inclusiveness of STEM. While we are waiting, let me see, I don't see my question section. So why don't we, let's see. Let me find my question. If you're in the chat, if you just put your name and where you are from, that would be helpful. There's a chat section on the right that allows us to sort of share with everybody where you are, where you're from. That way we'll be able to see who all's here and where you're from. That kind of thing would be great. If you're like me and in Southern Maryland, we had quite a cold day here today, and I'm sure Southern California didn't. Right, Omar? Is it always 78 degrees there?
Well, you wouldn't have thought that earlier. It was really windy here in Corona, where I am right now in California. Thank you.
Well, Denise at least gets some of that rainy weather up north, right?
A little bit, but today has been close to 70. It's been pretty warm today.
Oh, that's not bad for you guys then, is it?
It's early for Northern California. I'm up in Northern California, close to the San Francisco airport, and it's a lot. It's warmer than normal in January.
Well, rain has been our issue this year on the East Coast, so we're ready for the rain to be over. It's 7 o'clock right now. I'm gonna give us another few minutes before folks get started, or before we get started with folks. I can't find our question area, and I've got to find out about the question area, because that's where you'll be able to ask questions and really see, you know, and we can help you with different things as well. What we're going to be able to do today is really go over, oh, very good. Thanks, Omar. That's perfect. Thank you very much. So Omar's here from Orange County. I guess I should put mine down too. Denise, let's put it in.
All right.
I am here. Let me put mine in. And don't anybody laugh when I tell you where I am, because yes, I am within a stone's throw of what all this stuff that's going on today and all the parties tonight in Washington, D.C. And no, I'm nowhere near it either. So it's close enough. So I just try to stay away from all of that, keep all those people over there, and I'll stay right here. We're definitely glad you guys are here tonight.
Indeed. Thank you.
We're getting there. We're getting more than 30 people. That's awesome for an afternoon, evening presentation. So we know that there's folks out there who are interested in inclusivity in STEM. I'm going to give it one more minute. It's 1 after, in case we have any other late joiners. And I still don't see our question section. I don't know what's going on. So maybe our other behind the scenes team can see that, so they can address your questions in a good way. So definitely are excited to have everybody this evening and share stories about how districts are addressing STEM, inclusivity, and equity, so that we can reach as many kids as possible. I always like to talk about the kid who didn't know that they loved coding and STEM. That's the kid I want to find, because that's the kid that's going to design and develop the robot. Yes, clean my windows. That's what I want. Denise, do you have kids that are doing that yet?
Cleaning windows? No.
Or developing robots that will?
No, but I did this fall have kids that didn't know that they liked coding.
I love that.
They took the, we had a tough time, well, as everybody, doing the distance learning. So us elective teachers just kind of created a unit, and then we shared it with everyone. So all the 7th and 8th graders at our school of 1,100 got Robotics, CoderZ. That's the one I shared. And awesome. I got a lot of feedback from several students that said they would have never signed up for robotics if we were in-person school, and they really enjoyed coding. And they go, well, I didn't know really anything about it, and I didn't know I was good at it, and I'm glad we did it.
I love that. And I know Omar tries to get as many robots out there as he possibly physically can to help all of
absolutely. Absolutely.
I know that. I know. He's all over that.
You know, thinking about students that utilize their passion for robotics, their passion for problem solving. I don't know about cleaning windows per se, but I definitely know that at the recent Coolest Projects event right here in Orange County, you had literally 1,000 or more students there, of course, pre-COVID,
yeah,
doing wonderful, amazing projects with their Raspberry Pis, designing solutions to problems. And I know it is one of the most fabulous parts of that. Yeah,
absolutely,
indeed.
the equity look. Okay, so I am going to get started with our presentation. Thank you all so much. It's 4 after. We have, it's up to 40 now. So like in that few minutes we were chatting, it doubled in numbers. So here we are this evening. We're going to talk about inclusiveness in STEM and the strategies for creating and learning a learning environment that embraces the diversity and equity and inclusion in STEM. We don't want just the kids who already know. Just like Denise said, there's some kids there in her district who didn't know they really liked it and would never have signed up for it. Those are the kids we want. So let's do just one little housekeeping piece of information. You'll see on the right, which for whatever reason, the panelists and myself can't see, are a question section. So you have a panel and one of them is a chat and then one of them is a question section. If you will include, let's see, so we've addressed one in the chat. So if you'll include your questions in that question section, that'll record it for us. We'll address them as we can, but we'll save some time towards the end. If we don't get to your question, please rest assured we will address it at some point. The other thing, just to let you know, is we will have a recording out to everybody within 48 hours, so you can either rewatch it or share it with somebody who missed it, but it'll be the entire presentation included. So let's first meet our panelists. I'll introduce myself. I'm Kathy Scott. I'm the district account manager for CoderZ, and I'm going to be sort of the moderator tonight, sort of guide our presentation. We have 2 outstanding guests. We are very excited. Denise Fabris, I told her I was going to call her Fabri and spray her everywhere and clean the room. But Denise Fabris is in Northern California. Denise, will you go ahead and introduce yourself again, please, and your district and what you do?
Sure. Hi, I'm Denise Fabris, and I'm a middle school teacher in Burlingame, California, which is a little south of San Francisco. Our district is 1 middle school, but it's huge. We have 1,100 students, and we have 6 elementary schools that feed into that. We're kind of middle to upper middle class area, so you know, there's access to robotics and a lot of tech. You know, we're not too far from Silicon Valley. Kids do, as a matter of fact, I learned robotics mainly from my students. They go to robot summer camps, and a couple of them taught me my very first year teaching robotics.
Excellent, excellent. Omar Shepherd is Dr. Sim on Twitter. I think that's the best. And Omar is with the Orange County Department of Ed. Omar, would you, oh, wait a minute, he can't hear. Hold on, he is switching back to his headset, his little wonderful pods. We love the Apple iPods, yes. Although I don't have the wireless ones. There, can you hear us now, Omar? Is that better? Can you hear me? And make sure that, oh, we were tested this, you guys. I promise we tested all this. Can you hear us, Omar? No, nothing.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Omar, will
I
you
can hear you.
introduce yourself, Dr. Stem at Dr. Stem? Omar is with Orange County Department of Ed, so he's on the other end of the state, and I'll let Omar introduce himself as well. Oh, we can't hear you. Check your microphone button. Nope, check your microphone button.
Don't you love technology?
I know. We heard you a second ago. I promise. Always something, right? It's always something. And now we feel the pain of our teachers every day, Denise. Do you ever have this happen with your kids?
Oh, all the time. Or when they talk, it sounds like a robot, you know, it kind of breaks up like that. So
Oh, the kids probably love it. They probably think it's hilarious. Nope, nothing. Nope. Oh, you were just fine. Wonder what happened. And maybe if you click to mute and then click to unmute, maybe that'll work. I don't know. I'm not sure. Tech support, I am not. I will tell you guys that. Yeah, maybe log out and log back in to the GoToWebinar. We'll just hang tight. So while we're doing this, there should be a poll, and I don't have the poll in my panel on the right, but you should have a poll option to talk a little bit and share what grade you teach, and that would help. Okay, here the poll is open. And so you'll see, we'll give you about a minute if you'll just respond to the poll. And fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know that I can see the response. So hopefully I'll get that information. Yep. And make sure that you guys, let me go ahead and change the slide. So that was our introduction. I'm not following on my slides. I'm sorry. What grades do you teach for the poll? That'll give us a little bit of information. And let's give it another few seconds. And I don't know how we're going to share the results of the poll. So if I could get some feedback from my background team, that would be great. Let's see what they've given us here in the, oh, here we go. So, oh, that's awesome. So most of us are 5th through 8th, 40%, 15% are high school, 30% are other, and 10% are lower elementary. So thank you. And some of the others may fall into the category of administrative teams. That would be great. But mostly middle schools are here with us now. Omar, are you on?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Woohoo!
Wonderful. Thank you for your patience. My sincerest apologies.
You are
but yeah,
fine.
I was able to call in using the phone feature. Thank you.
Perfect. Omar, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are, where you're from. And
sure.
Awesome. I'm going to actually back our slides up.
Oh, sure. Let me introduce myself. My name is Omar Shepherd. I have the honor of serving as a curriculum specialist in STEM and career education with the Orange County Department of Education. And it really is an exciting opportunity. In my role, I am 50-50. On the STEM side, I actually run a robotics competition with my collaborator, Julie Roney, as well as lead a lot of professional learning in the computer science space. Really, our entree into understanding robotics is ways to support learners and engage in their understanding through computer science. On the career education side, interestingly, I work with students ages 16 to 21 that either have an IEP or a 504 plan, and I support them in their transition into life after high school. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm looking forward to sharing and learning alongside. Thank you so much.
Excellent, Omar. Thank you so much. We so appreciate it. So we did the poll. We know where we are, mostly middle school. That's great. So here's really where we are. We're at a focus point of why inclusivity in STEM really matters. And the big problem that we know is out there that's sort of maybe not a silent problem, but sometimes a silent problem, is there's just not enough employable people for the jobs that are available. So now we have to start to build the pipeline and really address that growth in STEM positions, that this gap's going to only get bigger and bigger. So we have to really be cognizant of how we're preparing students for STEM positions, which also leads us to the equity side. And again, why does the inclusivity matter in STEM? So we have a STEM workforce that's primarily one race, primarily one sex. It's the same pretty much everywhere. And we really need to do things to shake it up. We want to find all the kids. Just like Denise said earlier, she had a kid who would have never signed up for robotics if they hadn't been exposed to it. Those are the kids that we want. And I want Denise to share some more of her stories about how her district has really opened that door for kids to be inclusive from an equity standpoint. Denise, what else are you guys doing?
Well, our district is very fortunate to have, a few years ago, we hired a innovation director. And he has, well, I could speak with me personally. He has really supported me in my classes. I'm a prior math teacher who has turned into I don't know, it started out woodshop teacher, now it's then it switched to STEM teacher. Now it's kind of like a maker teacher. You know, I teach robotics and woodshop and maker engineering and, you know, all these hands-on type classes. And he has been real instrumental in helping me build my program. And he's doing the same with our 6 elementary schools also. So the kids so we are starting in our district younger. And the kids are coming to us with a little bit more background of STEM education, or, you know, I like to call it hands-on. You know, I teach, I try to tie in my woodworking and other projects and tie it in with math, but in our projects, I make the connection to real world. And it's been a little harder through distance learning,
Right.
but especially at the beginning. But now I'm kind of got a grasp in it, and you know we're doing a project right now. The kids are designing a zoo, and you know they're using area and perimeter and some financial backing. You have to buy the animals, and you know. You have to pay for the square foot, you know, so much per square foot. So it's kind of making that connection to real life. Because when you do that, you have much more meaning, I believe. And the kids, you know, I was that kid in school that sat in the back of the room and said, "This is stupid. What do we need this for?" Well, I try to answer that question before my students even ask it. So
That's perfect. That's outstanding. So then we talk about the, let me change my slide here. Like you just said, the connection to where I can actually apply. Why? You know, what does it matter? Who cares? Why do I need to know the area of a room? Well, you need to know the area if you're making a zoo, and you need to know the area if you're pouring concrete, kind of thing. So the real world application is extremely important in all facets of STEM positions. And then we talk about increasing the numbers of students. So we have to be able to have more students come in through the top of the pipeline to find the students who are really going to flourish in the jobs that we want them to flourish in, and give them the diversity that they need and the opportunities that they need. Omar has some great stories as well as far as what they're doing in Orange County to support the districts in the county around STEM initiatives. Omar, can you sort of share a little bit more about what you guys are doing?
Oh, absolutely. You know, the Orange County Department of Education is very unique in that we serve 28 school districts, plus the Diocese of Orange and private schools, in addition to actually being a sort of district ourselves in our Access program. Access is an acronym, of course, Alternative Correctional Community Educational Support Services. And really the idea is looking at how can we create opportunities for students to engage in meaningful STEM experiences. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you. My lens is through more of a computer science lens. So when I think of STEM, I do think of kids coding, programming. I think of kids engaging in robotics. I think of kids doing hackathons and all the fun things you can do in a computer science space. But let's go ahead and back up here and let's think about your prompt. How can we support districts in creating opportunities for students to engage in meaningful STEM learning? So I have kind of a few things that I wrote down that I thought would be important to hit on. The first one is inclusiveness through integration, right? Inclusiveness through having intentional systems in place. Inclusiveness through planning, right? Let's go ahead and begin with the beginning. If we were to think about these ideas along the lens of inclusiveness through integration, now again, I shared with you, I am always thinking about a computer science lens. So let's just say we want to get coding, we want to get programming into our students' classrooms. We want to engage in this. Well, how can we do this? Well, one way is to acknowledge that the California K-12 computer science standards, which in fact were developed from a national framework. So maybe you're saying, hey, he said California, I'm not in California. Well, it's okay, because the K-12 computer science standards is a national framework, right? And right there in the appendix is where the sweet spot is. It is a myriad of different articulations of ways you can integrate content, whether it's in history and social studies, whether it's in language arts, whether it's in math or science, right? So when we think about students that may, down their educational experience or career or journey, not have exposure to certain things, this is a way we can sneak it in, right? Let's just say as part of a project you're doing in your classroom, students are exposed to three-dimensional modeling, 3D printing, right? Maybe as part of your program and your coursework, students are exposed to learning about different concepts such as gear ratios as they're working with robotics, right? To the degree that when they are exposed to these things later, it'll give them something to connect it to. One of the things when we think about these realities are sometimes students just aren't interested. You can do a lot of things that you can to create these opportunities, but if students haven't been exposed to it and they haven't had opportunities to have low barrier entry to experience these opportunities, then they may say, hey, that's not for me. I don't see myself there. Well, sometimes it could begin a lot earlier when you're looking at opportunities to articulate meaningful STEM learning in an integrated experience, right? The next one I had there was integration through systems. Well, a little bit of that is thinking about what systems are in place. Now, I'm going to come back to this slide. Can we go to the next slide really quick?
Absolutely.
And the one after that one, actually. I think we're 2 slides down, but I'm going to come back to the other one.
This one?
But at the Orange County Department of Education, we're really big on considering how we think about inclusion through a couple of lenses, or a few lenses. Let's talk about it through the lens of conditions of learning, engagement. What are our pupil outcomes? Ultimately, I shared with you, my work is 50-50, 50% STEM, 50% career education. Let's hover around the career education piece right now. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm working with students ages 16 to 21. I had a student tell me today, Mr. Shepherd, I'm not interested in going to college. I just want to go get a job right away. So it's one of the realities that we have to acknowledge as educators, that our students are going to take multiple pathways, college and career. So when we think about those conditions of learning, right, I'll just kind of read an excerpt. Students are provided with safe and properly maintained schools. I'll skip. Teachers are fully credentialed to teach their subject area, and students are really given opportunities to engage and meaningful opportunities to help them to become civic-minded. Now, if we think about this, how are we going to engage them? I talked about integration. We are having a conversation talking about robotics, right? But what is the true outcome of that? How can we create these opportunities? Let's kind of go back to the next slide, the previous slide.
Okay.
So at the Orange County Department of Education, our main focus is grounded in a multi-tiered system of support. I know this is a paragraph, and I know it's a lot of narrative, so I'm going to read it to break it down slowly. The California MTSS framework provides the structure needed to achieve an inclusive, equitable, positive learning environment for each child. Let's pause there for a minute. When we say each child,
can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
So
Sure.
with this is so important. I just love this. So, but I'm not from California, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I'm from Missouri or Iowa
Mm-hmm.
or wherever, and I want to be able to utilize this kind of a framework. How would I find out about that? Is there a place I could go to learn more about that framework so I could help that direct how I get the equity piece for my kids?
Absolutely. You know, if you're interested in learning more about this framework, you know, I don't know if I can drop it in the chat or if we can link it to this presentation that can be shared. But essentially, right through the Orange County Department of Education website, you can find out more about MTSS. You can also find out more about the guide to understanding MTSS and ways to create that framework. Because ultimately, when you think about inclusion, when you think about access for all, it really is going to be about looking at ways you can create these safe learning spaces, create opportunities to plan lessons that all students can have access to, which really speaks to UDL, that universal design for learning, right? When you design universally, when you're planning for how you'll provide instruction to meet the needs of all learners, it can really make it more accessible to all. This is really entering into that systemic place of what we were talking about, right? So inclusiveness through integration, right? We talked about integrating across content.
Not only
Inclusiveness,
Omar, but could I add another word there? Sustainability.
Sure.
We want to be able to sustain this systemic change. Those are a lot of S words, I know. But now I've got a little bit of structure around it. And so Denise is laughing at me. So I've got a little bit of structure around it. And as I look through this, all the hot points are hit because we do still have to look about the social emotional needs of our kids. We still have to think about their background and everything they bring to the party, so to speak. You know, everybody brings something to the party, and we got to be able to find the right thing for every kid. And you know, Denise found it for one of her kids. He said, I would have never known that. You're finding it for kids through using a framework and helping the districts in Orange County say, here's how you're going to be able to do this in a way. And sometimes just having that
and if you click on the previous slide really quick, ultimately, stem.ocde.us is where you can find our computer science website. When you click there, not only will you find a great video that we put together with CoderZ showing up some of the great platform, but you'll also find a host of other resources.
Excellent.
So I invite you to visit it there, take a look at the standards, take a look at the curriculum guides, and it's a great resource to support you as you're seeking to integrate and implement any STEM and computer science program.
And I'm going to remind our attendees, please don't forget to use that question section for any questions, comments that you have. I do have a great, strong team behind us that will be able to either address them or save them and shoot them back to Omar and or Denise. What else, Omar?
Well, I really think it's important for us to think about how we'll engage and how we'll acknowledge the ideas around culture. Because part of the idea around culture is understanding that when we embrace students from multiple backgrounds, we need to create opportunities for them to build community, for them to be able to have that reduction of that barrier. There's a book we often reference, Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain by Zaretta Hammond, which really juxtaposes this idea around creating lessons and giving students the support and resources they need to embrace challenging content. And I really think that's part of the challenge, to try to stay away from what she refers to in her book as a pedagogy of poverty, where we're really spoon feeding the answers rather than providing that support. So I highly want to encourage folks to really consider some of those ideas.
And robotics does that sort of naturally, doesn't it? Both Omar and Denise, it's sort of like, instead of spoon feeding kids, it challenges them to solve problems constantly.
That's right. That's right.
Problems. And so
and that's really how CoderZ came into a really interesting position. We found ourselves thinking about, you know, we're in this virtual remote space. We want to provide a high quality competition experience for our students to compete in robotics. How can we do this? How can we put the students together on teams where they can collaborate, where they can work together in a virtual space, and we can still emulate some of those same through points that we get through the collaboration they would do when they were face to face. So it's been really exciting.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I have another poll for everybody. If my fabulous team could shoot that poll up for us. Just asking, do you currently offer robotics? So I'm gonna the poll is open, and we'll give you a minute or so. There's, just doesn't take long to answer. So maybe we'll just shorten it to about 30 seconds. Just to see where you guys are and where you're flowing in with robotics in your current instruction. Omar talked a little bit about that integration piece through the K-12 computer science standards and the appendix. That's something that we hear a lot more. We want to integrate it, sort of bringing that science and math, shooting it, giving it some life so the kids get in there and they can play some games and really understand why I need to learn it. Denise started at a young age to say, I don't know, I want to see this. Okay, so we have, let me just make sure I can see this. We've got this wonderful text. So more than half of you are doing robotics currently. And there's another 20% that would like to. So that, and there's 20% that aren't. So this is a great way to even think about, like, looking at these frameworks, looking at ideas like Denise is putting in place, just giving kids that real world challenge of, okay, so we're going to learn this and we're going to learn it through robotics and we're going to make it fun for kids. So
I have a
yes
about robotics before we pop on, knowing that so many people have do robotics. I have been doing robotics for, not counting this year, because this year is kind of weird, but I've been doing robotics for 6 years, I believe. And my first year was, here, you're teaching robotics. And I said, what is robotics? And I was lucky enough to have some students who had gone to some camps, and they kind of walked me through it. But those of you that are doing robotics, in the spring, when we first kind of went all locked down and, distance learning, which nobody really knew what that was or how to do it. And, I felt like a brand new teacher. It was kind of like, how do I teach robotics? Robotics is a very popular course at our school. And I'm lucky enough to teach 2 classes, a 6th grade and a 7th grade class. And we are on a trimester, so they rotate every trimester, so 3 times a year. So I get 6 different groups of kids taking robotics. Well, once pandemic hit, it's kind of like, oh shoot, how do I do robotics? And then when the fall started and there was talk, oh, we're going to be back in school, but we're at this hybrid and you can only have 12 kids, 12 to 16 in a class, and you can't share materials. It's like, I can teach robotics. Well, CoderZ, somehow I managed to find, I think I was reading an article that someone talked about CoderZ, so I went and looked it up, and it's been kind of a lifesaver for distance learning because it is all virtual. You're not touching robot parts. You're not on the floor. I mean, that's kind of the fun part, right. The kids are on the floor testing the robots, but all the students are home and they're kind of by themselves. But this CoderZ has really worked out fabulous. And then I don't know if we're going to talk about this later, but Amazon has the challenge. Amazon has the robotic challenge. And I put kids, once I figured out how to do a breakout room, I put kids in breakout rooms and they work together solving the Amazon challenge, which involves the coding is not too difficult, but the strategy and the problem solving is huge because you have to go get the item, kind of like you were working at Amazon. The little robot goes and gets the item and brings it back, And as you get about 3 or 4 missions, then they start having a time limit. So when I first did it, it took me 4 tries before I could get the basketball back in the right amount of time. You have to problem solve and figure out a route to have your robot take that allows it to retrieve it in the right amount of time. So group work, Omar mentioned about that group work, this was huge for that. And the kids struggled at the beginning, you know,
Right.
not so much they don't know how to work in groups, but they had to learn how to work in groups through Zoom. That was the hard part.
So shout out to you for the breakout rooms, big time, huge shout out. That's awesome, because they're a great tool. It's not something that everybody's intuitive about, and it's a great way for kids to collaborate in small groups. I love that example. That's perfect, and that is a perfect transition to really what we want to talk about here, and sort of the challenge is, you know, recruiting the kids in. We got to get them in. So we want to make it an environment of STEM and computer science for any and all kids. And we want to be able to do it, and you just shared, in a fun, engaging way with games. It's a game. It took you 4 times. I'm sorry. It probably will take me 5, you know, 6.
That's right. And if you don't mind me adding just a couple of elements to this, I really think the interesting part of this, when we think about the computer science / the robotics side and the coding and the programming, the interesting thing is when you have students that are new to these notions around collaboration, let's kind of talk about this from that career mindset, right? This whole idea of there being a gig economy, really there being these short projects where you work on something, you get off it, and you have to start all over again. So therefore, you think about those stages of team development, you know, forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning, and having to do that over and over and over again. These are opportunities to help the students develop that muscle. And if we begin to think about the application and how that approaches towards recruiting, one of the interesting aspects has been looking at the implementation of computer science principles courses in high school, and how the opportunity to earn that AP credit has been an interesting recruiting point for some teachers. I definitely think that's been an interesting, especially at the secondary level.
Absolutely perfect. You guys have summarized the slide better than I could. So I'm just going to move on to the next one. How's that? Because you perfectly covered everything on there. And actually, this is a special Denise slide, believe it or not, because she has a great little story. And we want her to tell her Pythagorean Theorem story. So when I talk about coding and robotics, I'll talk about everything from basic math up to trigonometry. Denise has the better story for this. Denise, will you share your Pythagorean Theorem story?
Sure. So in the olden days when we had school in person, those of you that have robotics, if you, some of you might have used the Lego EV3 robot. So the 7th graders, once we get into learning about the different math blocks in the block coding system, I have them program the robot to draw a right triangle, and I give them a couple dimensions and angles. Well, obviously the 90-degree angle, and they use the math blocks to code the robot to drive in drive a right triangle. Well, a lot of the 7th graders, that's not a 7th grade math standard, so they say, yeah, I heard of it, but I'm not quite sure what it is. So I go to the board and show them the formula and explain it to them, and then after that piece, I kind of work it out a little bit, because you have to use square root, and that's another little, you know, option in the math block. And then by the end, these 7th graders are using the math coding blocks to code their robot to drive in a right triangle using the Pythagorean theorem to calculate the distances and angle, or the distance. They're given the angles. And they walk out of my class having it 1 up on their classmates for next year.
I love that. I just think that's the best. That is like a great example of, every kid who wants to learn the Pythagorean Theorem. Now I know it, and it's awesome. It's really a great way. And I also want to let everybody know that we will share the Amazon Side Robotics Challenge with everybody that Denise so kindly shared with all of them. We do have a link, and we'll be glad to share that as well, so that you'll be able to, and don't forget, you are going to get this recording. So yes, everybody who's attending will be able to sign up for the Amazon Side Robotics Challenge, and it is through one of our partnerships with Amazon Future Engineer. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And when you do start looking for STEM partners and providers, you want it to be flexible. You want it to be easy for any and all students. That's what we call a low floor and a high ceiling. So a low floor is no prior knowledge. I don't care what you come to the story with. I don't care what, just as long as you're willing to learn. The high ceiling, okay, so I'm one of those like gamers, and I have a chair like Omar because I'm a gamer guy. And then I want to be challenged, and you want to make sure you have opportunities to challenge kids. And even the Pythagorean Theorem story is a challenge for those 7th graders because they haven't had it yet. So we're going to stretch their brain a little bit. And so we want to be able to have all levels. Any teacher can also have access to everything and not have the barriers, and keep that fear at a minimum. Because if I'm new to robotics, and we have some of you out here joining us tonight, you don't have robotics, but maybe it's something that you're passionate about, or the need is there. How can I do that? And how can you help me do that? And that's really what we want to be able to do. So I'm just gonna you've heard Denise and Omar both mention CoderZ, and we appreciate that definitely. But our main goal today here is to really share with you all the fact that there's other people out there doing this on all levels, and including all kids, and having that equity as the center of what they do. And for CoderZ, that is the core of what we do as well. So basically, we have a curriculum and a competition. You've also heard them say it's all virtual. I think one of the neat things to talk about is that sometimes that design and engineering piece, I think Denise, you talked about it, they want to really get their hands on it and build it, right? And then you want to have those 3 other kids over there do the coding, right? Here at CoderZ, you get to do them both. You get to have the kids code the robots. I get my own robot. I don't have to buy all the stuff that goes with it because it's virtual. You can run that thing off the end of the table as much as you want. No big deal, right? And it makes it.
And they
go ahead. What, Denise? Go ahead.
And they do. They drive it right off the cliffs, and then it pops back up.
And then they get to try it all over again. So that's one of the things. So virtual robotics, I mean, we talked about the pandemic. Omar shared, here we get slammed into this world of unknown. Denise said she felt like a new teacher again last year, which that was a great way to say it. But if you have that virtual solution, though CoderZ was not written for the pandemic, though we fit very well, we also want to captivate the imagination of students. So that constant problem solving, pushing their limits, and making sure they're able to use those 21st century skills that we all talk about: collaboration, communication, most importantly, I think Omar mentioned it, computational thinking. That's just so important. Do either of you guys have anything to add here? I'm putting you on the spot.
I would like to say, when I see this EV3 here, I see an old friend. And I just think about my last days before the pandemic hit. I was in a 3rd grade classroom. We were talking about the ideas around perimeter and area, and we were looking at how can we use the robot to help us support the students in articulating their understanding. And then there was a pause, and then discovering that you can utilize virtual spaces to support students in having contextualized learning experiences. It really, I think, is part of what the whole integration of standards and integration of content is all about, to support students in walking away with real world understanding of how they can apply these educational concepts, whether it's math or science.
and using CoderZ in math and in science sort of gets them plugged in again, and engagement, that's always definitely a huge piece with that. We've already talked about the engaging games, the low floor, the high ceiling, the interdisciplinary. STEM is the world, STEAM is the world we live in, and in flexible environments.
I like to say one more thing about the problem solving. So problem solving is huge, and I'm kind of comparing my old teaching days as a math teacher versus my more recent teaching, like the past 7 years, teaching days as I'm going to call it a STEM / maker type teacher. And in math, a student would ask, I don't understand how to do this problem. And as the math teacher, I would tell them how. But as the STEM teacher, the student comes up to me and says, I can't make my robot do this. And I don't give them the answer. And I tell them that I won't give them the answer. I will give you clues and hints, and kind of get you on the right road and give you a little shove to solve it, but you have to figure it out yourself. And what I've noticed between my old math days and my current STEM days or robotic days is the students are, oh my gosh, when they solve a challenge with the robot, they are jumping up and down and they are screaming, and I can hear them all the way across the room. Yeah, we got it.
Wow.
This Fabris, awesome. It worked. It is just so much more gratifying to them, and they're so proud of themselves for solving the problem themselves versus,
It just makes me think of that whole thought process of now they can teach the other kids in the class, and you definitely know when you are teaching somebody else.
And I really hope it's okay that I say that it's also gratifying for you as an educator when you see that learning, when you get a sense that your effort to support them in developing these new understanding is translating to their having that eureka moment, which is really what teaching is all about. So thank you for sharing that, Denise. That's awesome.
That's like you're popping the balloon with confetti coming out of it right there in the classroom all day long. I love that.
That's it.
That's what CoderZ does when you hit the target.
I forgot about that. It says the balloon explodes and you get the confetti when you hit the target. That's so funny at the end of each mission.
Yep.
So I promised everybody that we would share the Amazon Cyber Robotics Challenge. The link is right there, and I am going to assume that we will publish that link as well. You can always go to gocoderz.com, and we have it on our webpage. It's very easy to access. You can also get this through Amazon Future Engineer webpage. So I just want to make sure that you understand this was part of our collaboration, and really Amazon Future Engineer collaborated with CoderZ. They came to us last year and said, hey, we want you to build this course because they liked what we were doing. And we share the same mission. And I think that's super important. Amazon Future Engineer is trying to reach as many kids as possible. Their reasons are very obvious. They have a lot of fulfillment centers out there, and they have a huge need for strong engineers. CoderZ's mission is also to reach as many kids as possible, to bring that opportunity to as many kids as possible. So it's a great partnership. So this was our first collaboration with Amazon Future Engineer, a free course all the time. It's about 3 hours. Denise, you said you went through it. Maybe it took you a little bit longer because it takes.
Oh, I didn't finish it. It takes a little while. I had the kids do it for a week.
Okay.
It is, you need zero knowledge.
Perfect.
To do this, zero coding knowledge to do this. But as you progress through, I think there's 21 missions total. Yep. But as you progress, it gets a little more trickier. But you work your way up. And the main focus, I would say, in this is not just coding, but problem solving and strategy.
Excellent. And they're going to work with Hercules, the Amazon robot. They're actually going to be in a fulfillment center. It's very cool. The kids will be guided through the whole course by 2 Amazon Future Engineer interns, And they really are Amazon Future Engineer interns, 2 young people that have, take them through the course, and video clips and all the supporting teacher materials are included. So I mentioned that was our first partnership with Amazon Future Engineer. After we did this, teachers unequivocally came back and said, we need more curriculum. So I have another layer to add for Title I teachers. And that is Amazon Future Engineer came back and said, CoderZ, we want to underwrite or sponsor Title I schools, free for the first 6 months, access to any CoderZ curriculum. So for those of you out there who are not Title I, here's what I'm going to tell you. We'll work with you. We'll help you out. We'll make sure you have something that will work for you. We will work the system if we have to. How's that? Because at the bottom line is we want to make sure students have the access that they need. This is the first 6 months, up to 150 kids, access to any of our courses. So every teacher in a Title I school could literally sign up for 150 students. The link at the bottom of that page, those of you that are frantically writing this down, please do. We are here to work with you. And please definitely check it out. You'll get information on each of the courses. We start at a novice level. You see novice, beginning, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And just like Denise was talking about the Amazon Cyber Robotics Challenge, you can start at an early stage and we work with you through the whole process. So it's not like you have to be a coding expert to either complete the courses or be a teacher for the courses. We'll make sure that we give you all the support that you need through our Title I sponsorship. And that's so the last piece. Here's the coming to sort of the end, but not quite to the end. We also have a competition. So a lot of you or some of you may have had experience with those robotics competitions, hands-on, very competitive, travel teams, the whole 9 yards, like all in. Well, that sort of came to an abrupt halt. CoderZ has done our cyber robotics competition for 5 years now. This year was our 5th year. This year was completely virtual. We had CoderZ League. Now, what I'll share with you a little bit about CoderZ League, not our sprint challenge, but the CoderZ League. We have our world finals next week, live streamed on Twitch. So just go to Twitch, look for the CoderZ channel, and you'll see our CoderZ League live streamed on Twitch. We have commentators. It's very cool. It's very fun. It'll be teams from all over the world. Then that came to an end, and everybody asks, what are you doing in the spring? Because we need something for the spring. So CoderZ put their hat on, and we said, let's go to work. And we came up with the Sprint Challenge. It's going to be for the month of March, and it is an all virtual, in-school robotics competition. You could do it as a class, a club, or a whole school. So we have teams of 5. Let me get to that slide. And you can do it at 3 different levels. So again, you don't have to have prior knowledge. It just does it. You can start anywhere. Though we have grade recommendations, let's say you have a team at the 8th grade that has never done robotics. Can you do novice? Sure, these are just recommendations. Just to let you know, these are just sort of where it is. You can go to our website for more information about CoderZ League Sprint Challenge. It is CoderZLeague.com, very easy. And you'll see that we have 3 levels, like I said, novice, junior, and pro, using either Blockly or Python. Blockly is the only option for the novice, making it as easy as possible. No prior knowledge on that. Then you see it's just some different pieces for the other 2, like just so you have an idea. Okay, so what kids would qualify for the junior? So if you have FLL or WRO graduates, computer science students, they probably fit in that middle level. Again, kids who are already coding Python, they would probably fit into the pro level, just so you have an idea of what kind of students and where they would go. So only for the month of March, fast and furious, there will be state leaderboards. So you're going to be able to compete at the state level as well. You'll have a representative, and we can share more about the logistics. we want to encourage all students. That's why it's a fast and furious competition. We want to get them in, get them out during class, in school. Let's plug them in on that asynchronous day if you have asynchronous days. Let's plug them in during that breakout room sessions. Let's get those 5 kids on each team in their own session, making it highly accessible. Everyone learns. And most importantly, yeah, we want to make it fun. And it's sort of serious fun because, like, kids are like jumping up and down when they figure it out and they have that problem solving experience. So also, just to let you know, Title I schools do get a discount, and we can work with you on the teams and the level of teams. 1 team of 5 would be just like a club. A class may have 6 teams of 5. They are in teams of 5, so you have to have 1 to 5 per team. And then we have a whole school where you can have like 40 teams of 5. So really getting that whole group involved wherever they are. If they're in school, if they're out of school, it doesn't matter. So that's all I have for this evening. Denise and Omar, do you have anything else that you would like to add for our attendees right now?
Just that it has first been a humble opportunity to be able to share and connect, but to know that there's lots that we talked about today. If you find anything that I've shared of value, please check it out on the website, stem.ocde.us, or reach out to me on Twitter at Dr. Stem or by email. I'd be happy to provide any support or links to any of the resources on the references I've shared. Thank you so much.
That is very kind, Omar. I appreciate that because some of these could be coming from anywhere. Denise, what else do you have for us?
I just want to tell those, whatever the percentage of people that have not done robotics before, it's not that hard to do. At least the CoderZ, the virtual robotics, I mentioned that all of us elective teachers kind of rotated lessons. And we have this one senior teacher who has 0 coding experience, was a little apprehensive of doing the CoderZ unit that I put together. But she did it, and she actually participated in it also and came back to me and said, God, this is really fun, and the kids love it. So don't be apprehensive. It is not that hard to do. If you could do online teaching, you could do this. This is easier than online teaching. So
that is the best. That's awesome. I can't thank either of you enough, and I want to also thank all of our participants. We have had everybody hang in there the entire time. That's amazing. If you have a question that hasn't been answered, please know that we will. And just a quick reminder that your recording will be sent within 48 hours. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Omar. Your time has been most valuable to us. We very much appreciate it. Everybody have a good afternoon, a good evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much.